Ladies and gentlemen, the academic procession will enter shortly. You are kindly requested to stand.
Bomma le botate, molokoloko wa diruteri o tla tsena ka nako e kopana, le kgopelwa go ema.
Dames en here, die akademiese prosesie sal binnekort inbeweeg. U word versoek om asseblief op te staan.
By virtue of the authority entrusted to me, I hereby constitute this assembly as a legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. During this assembly, degrees with all the associated rights and privileges will be conferred on the candidates whose names appear in the program. Please take a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, I now request you to join us in a silent prayer or meditation to give thanks to our graduates. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all, in particular our Deputy Dean and the Faculty of Law, Professor Maimela, and our Deputy Director for Enrollment and Management, Mr. Al Isaacs, and our Manager for Postgraduate Recruitment, Mr. Siboto, all chairpersons of schools, heads of departments, directors, emeriti, honorary professors as well. You are welcome to this auspicious occasion. Our Student Representative Council, represented by the Secretary General of the SRC, and to all our special graduates today. We are truly delighted to have you here. To all spouses, parents, sponsors, who have made it possible for our graduates today. All the dignitaries that we have here, please feel welcome to the great University of Pretoria. I will briefly just speak about leaving a legacy, so that the future generations can build on it. And these are very brief notes. The most important thing is for us to celebrate your achievement, which is something that we truly appreciate. It's indeed a privilege for me to welcome you this afternoon, and we will be having 42 soon-to-be graduates for master's program, and we have 8 PhDs who will pass the stage here from, of course, the best faculty that you can ever find in the continent. Now, we have LLMs and MPhils, or Master of Philosophy, through coursework degrees in multidisciplinary human rights. We have LLM through coursework degrees in the international trade and investment law. We also have LLMs and MPhils through the coursework degrees in human rights and democratization in Africa, and MPhil through coursework in sexual and reproductive rights in Africa. 4 of our esteemed students will today graduate, in fact 8 of them will graduate with a doctorate in law. We wish to express our congratulations to each and every one of you. We know how long and how difficult this journey is for you to have reached this milestone. And it is, of course, something that makes us truly proud of our graduates. It makes us truly proud of everyone else that has supported them. Now, you have run this race. You needed resilience, you needed perseverance, and now you have crossed the finishing line. And we know that it is through hard labor. We know that it is something that you are looking forward to face the world and be able to make us proud. Now, we as the University of Pretoria, as I say, are extremely proud about these achievements. And we are honored to have you here at what we call Africa's top faculty of law. The Deputy Dean can tell you that story. She is very passionate about it. And I'm saying it now, Deputy Dean, that it's Africa's top faculty of law. In case you're jealous, I know others are not sure, that's why they're very reluctant to clap, but it's okay. You have been equipped here as our graduate to become a driving force, behind access to justice and to create and ensure equitable, just and fair society for all. And we are excited by how you will stand these most critical challenges over a period of time in your lifetime. And thank you to your parents, as I said earlier, those that supported you, our guardians, family and friends. We are really happy that you have played a big role for these graduates to have a stamp of approval from the University of Pretoria. I also wish to extend my gratitude to UP Law's donors and friends of the faculty. These are very important people for us because they really anchor the university to provide quality education. And your enduring support enables us to actually look at this potential, look at the capacity, look at all of these other attributes that we need to produce world-class graduates, who will, of course, go ahead and make a significant contribution to society. We're also truly appreciative, for all the sacrifices, and the contribution that you made. So allow me to add that UP's law faculty was again, and I'm saying again, this year rated top in South Africa and Africa amongst the top 100 global universities. We stand at number 65. We improved from 78 last year. So for this year and for 2024, we are at number 65. You know how many universities are around the world? Jesus. And this is an unprecedented 7th time. So we've been winning this for the 7th time, And I know that our faculty, is very proud to engage with very difficult issues. And these graduates here, are the products of that. Now, in the last 2 weeks, just to illustrate some of the achievements that we have here, and there are numerous of them indeed. One of our own professors, Dire Tladi, who's an expert in international law and also a chair of our Future Africa in Global Equity in Africa. He was appointed as a judge, of the International Court of Justice. I'm sure this was publicized. This was publicized widely, and we know that Professor Tladi's, election and this historic moment becomes the first South African to serve as a judge in this prestigious position in the World Court. Now, something very unique about Professor Tladi is that he's actually a child of this University of Pretoria. He arrived at this university, when it was very difficult, as we were about to transition from the apartheid state into democracy, when the university was configured in a particular manner. So he had to endure the challenges of the time, including studying in Afrikaans, And he's very fluent in Afrikaans. He would have never gotten the degree if he wasn't. But through his perseverance, this announcement was made by the President of the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council. After a very rigorous voting process around the world, he came out to be the appointed one. So I say, all this because we just want to highlight, the credibility of the qualification that you get from these teachers that you see behind me. I know they don't like to be called teachers, they are lawyers, but they're still teachers. Now, they're highly trained people, very passionate, and they make sure that when we sign you off, you have been through that rigor. And I wish to thank them very much for all the hard work that they do. Now, as you go forward into the world, into your chosen niche area, we trust that by using, this law degree for the goodness of what it is, for the public good, you will never really lose the passion that you have garnered here. And you will always focus on justice and the eradication of miscarriage of justice. And we know that you have very strong feelings about it. And please keep on keeping on and safeguard, the legal profession. It has many, many challenges. You know that, some of the very illustrious, legal minds also apply, or try to become politicians. There's a bit of a challenge there, but it's okay. Politicians are lawmakers, So you will also find meaning and value and inspiration in your professional lives. A great privilege in and of itself, as well as leaving a legacy which future generations can build on. We implore you to become those role models. And as we consider this legacy, no congratulatory speech today will be complete without a tribute to the late Professor Christoph Haynes, who held several positions at this university, including the director of the Center for Human Rights, the dean of the Faculty of Law, and founding co-director of the Institute of International and Comparative Law before his untimely passing in March 2021. As one of South Africa's great activists, Professor Haynes made an immense contribution, working tirelessly for a new democratic South Africa, along, of course, with many other brilliant legal minds, and making an important contribution to our strong and valuable Constitution. Now, Professor Haynes, was a white person, and the apartheid state was led by white people. But he became an activist. He respected his profession so much that it didn't really matter. He just wanted justice for all, and he applied his expertise. And as the University of Pretoria, we pay tribute to him for that bravery, but also for his expertise to actually have produced what he has produced. And at this university, and indeed the continent, his legacy lives on through each and every student whose life was touched by his teaching. The Center for Human Rights, which Professor Haynes co-founded, it turns 37 years this year, 37. And the center has successfully invested in building a community of human rights advocates across the continent through its academic programs and alumni networks, as well as other education tools, such as the advanced human rights short courses and the moot court competitions. The Masters in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa program is now also part of the global campus of human rights, a network that serves 7 leading master's programs across the world. And over the course of this existence, and of course through various phases of political power and social change, UP has been resilient and also committed to academic quality. This has allowed us to establish a presence among the top 1.9% of universities worldwide. Do you understand that? 1.9%. We are actually not boasting, we are just presenting the facts so that you actually understand what an asset this university is and how we will protect it with our lives not to be destroyed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we know that we are enabling our students to go, into the field, but also study further for those who want to. And we know that excellence is what characterizes us. And we are continuously transforming the corporate and research landscape through innovative thinking and high caliber of our graduates. More than 250,000 alumni have passed through our doors. Many are on the path of success, while others have already become leaders in their fields, both locally and internationally. And UP has grown to become one of the top universities on the continent, and we are proud that our reputation precedes our graduates around the world. And as a global and African university, we are excited by the opportunities going ahead. Your efforts will not be unrecognized, but be sure not to neglect the little things either. And little things are, those out of sight, just be kind to people. You're trained to be lawyers and to be vicious, but just be kind to people. And because we live in a very unequal society. So you just have to remember kindness and also be people-centered. And there are great minds here who have always been people-centered throughout their lives. Retired Judge, Deputy Justice Mseneke is just one example. There are many others. Just be kind to people. That makes a huge difference in the lives of ordinary people. And also respect the profession. But I have to, before I conclude, that, we pay so much money to lawyers. We pay a lot of money. I was signing another money thing yesterday. So when you start making money, you should remember us now. I can repeat it. When you start making money, remember us here at UP. Because we have students who are truly indigent here, and I know that some of you have benefited from the generosity of others. That's why we have sponsors, we have donors, and it is actually quite important that we support one another. We know that there is a so-called NSFAS, but we also know that NSFAS is not able to meet the needs of the poor students, or even those that are not so poor but still have the needs. So it is your support that helps us to supplement whatever it is that the university can. So donations. I will now request the Dean to introduce to me candidates present here whose names appear in the program.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates to you.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Mr. Landilani Banda, who has compiled who has complied with the requirements of the degree of Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled Heterosexual Nationalism and the Mischaracterization of the Anti-Sodomy Laws in Zambia. In this thesis, the candidate focused on how Zambia's anti-sodomy laws are mischaracterized as laws against homosexual orientation rather than the sexual conduct described in the provisions. The study argued that the mischaracterization is informed by Zambia's assumed identity of a heterosexual nation grounded on the rights on majority religion, culture, and morality. This mischaracterization causes and legitimizes the violation of the rights of sexual and gender minorities in breach of Zambia's human rights obligations. Arguing that the decriminalization of consensual same-sexual conduct would mitigate the impact of these violations, the thesis provides strategies for decriminalization, including strengthening Zambia's sexual and gender minority rights movement. The thesis contributes to scholarship by developing, in the context of sexual and gender minority rights in Africa, a theoretical framework based on decolonial theory, sexual citizenship, and labeling theory. This thesis was completed under the supervision of Professor Franz Filion. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor, Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I hereby introduce to you Jeanette Mary Bays, who has completed all the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws under my supervision. In this thesis, a legal analysis on how France, Germany, the European Union, and South Africa responded to the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights. The candidate examined the role the United Nations guiding principles play in ensuring that human rights are respected during global trade. The main line of inquiry in this thesis was to explore the issue of transnational corporations having supply chains across national borders and therefore not bound by specific national legislation. It included consideration of a supernatural framework, the soft law UNGP, and enforcement through national legislation. The candidate discussed the UNGP and the context of international legal regimes that address business and human rights and identified initiatives that failed to come to fruition. The candidate finally recommends that technology advances gives to previously unimaginable forms of work, but often at the expense of the dignity of work. The government, as the candidate suggested, should therefore develop policies on digital labor platform work because despite creating opportunities, this work violates fundamental rights. I give you Dr. Bays.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Mr. Dumisani Ganthi, who has complied with the requirements of the degree Doctor of Laws under the supervision of Dr. Thomas Probert. His thesis was titled, Evaluating the Relationship Between Body-worn Cameras and More Accountable or Effective Policing in South Africa, a critical examination of theory, policy, and practice from the international human rights law perspective. In this thesis, the candidate explored the potential of body-worn cameras as an accountability affordance of the South African police services. The thesis reviewed the constitutional and statutory basis for accountability in South Africa's law enforcement and a more social-legal review of the impediments to accountability, including cultures of secrecy and hostility to outside interference, such as investigations by the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. The thesis also drew on the history of introducing new technologies in policing and highlighted the critical importance of effective trials and evaluations of impact. Concerning body-worn cameras, it notes that existing evaluations overwhelmingly conducted in jurisdictions in the global north have focused on measuring the impact of indirect variables, such as the incidence of use of force. The thesis contends that in the South African context, it would be important that any trial of new technology focuses on direct accountability indicators. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Josephat Moore Kilonzo, who has complied with the requirements of the degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled A Rights-Based Approach to Disarmament, Demobilization, and Reintegration in Countering Violent Extremism in Africa. This thesis was prepared under the supervision of Professor Stuart Maslin. In this thesis, the candidate examines how DDR programs conducted amid ongoing hostilities differ from traditional DDR, which is implemented at the end of armed conflicts. The approaches needed to comply with international human rights law were considered both from the point of view of the program beneficiaries and the communities to which they will return. Specific concerns for treating persons with disabilities, women, and children were accorded particular attention. This area of international law and policy is greatly understudied, which makes the candidate's thorough analysis all the more important. As such, the thesis contributes to a better understanding of how such programs could and should be designed and implemented across the continent. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I'm pleased to introduce to you Ms. Utamlimile Krista Amanda Mukohena, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws with the thesis titled Right to Social Assistance in South Africa, prepared under the supervision of Dr. Ashwani Budu, with me as the co-supervisor. In our thesis, the candidate critically analyzed the protection of indigenous widows' rights to social assistance. The research indicated that despite social assistance being one of the significant strands of social security and its inclusion in the apex law of South Africa, the right does not extend to indigenous widows. The result is that a significant portion of widows are left unprotected, since owing to high unemployment rates, only a minority can contribute towards social insurance. The thesis demonstrates that supplementary to the vulnerability of women, widows suffer multiple human rights violations exacerbated by various cultural practices. While arguing for the need to provide indigenous widows with the right to social assistance, this thesis engages with approaches in other legal systems that can inform changes in the South African legal framework on social assistance. It recommends changes, including the formulation of social welfare policies which expressly accommodate indigenous widows. As such, the thesis uniquely contributes to social security by examining indigenous widows' right to social assistance. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I hereby request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Ms. Beryl Angela Anyango-Orao, who has complied with the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Laws with the thesis titled The Use of Force and Firearms in the Context of Assemblies in Kenya, Rules and Accountability. In this thesis, the candidate examined how the policing of assemblies in Kenya complies with or violates international human rights law. The right to peaceful assembly and the associated law enforcement rules are fundamental areas of international concern. The issues were methodically and thoughtfully considered by the candidate, who highlighted the significant failings of accountability for the unlawful use of force in connection with public gatherings. Particular concerns highlighted in the thesis include the rules governing the use of firearms during assemblies and the violent dispersal of protests against the government. The thesis should spur substantive change to law, policy, and training of police in Kenya. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor, my apologies, this thesis was completed under the supervision of Professor Stuart Maslin. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree, Doctor of Laws, with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Gerald Andrew Ramsden, who has complied with the requirements of a degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled The Legality and Regulation of Professional Mixed Martial Arts in South Africa, prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate examined the legality of mixed martial arts in South Africa. The candidate argued that although MMA, a sport which entails the mutual infliction of consensual bodily harm, is now legal in all US states following legislative intervention, its legality in both the United Kingdom and South Africa remains questionable without similar legislative intervention or judicial scrutiny. The research identifies a wide range of different but related legal principles and concepts, both in South African law and the laws of the comparative jurisdictions, namely the UK, New York State, and Nevada, which impact on the legality of MMA. The candidate ultimately makes a strong case on how best to regulate MMA and presents a unique regulatory model to regulate MMA in South Africa. Mr. Interim Vice Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree, Doctor of Laws, with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice-Chancellor and Principal, I introduce to you Amang Lindlin Tamufor Epsa Moma, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled The Right to a Healthy Environment in a Just Transition to Clean Energy Production in South Africa, prepared under my supervision. In this candidate, the candidate shows how the right to a healthy environment, as recognized in the Constitution and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, is essential in achieving a just transition to clean energy production and addressing the inherent injustices of the climate crisis. Progressive legislation and policies have been adopted, but the rift between regressive executive action, normative framework, and litigation outcomes need to be bridged to ensure a just transition to clean energy production that upholds the right to a healthy environment. Mr. Interim Vice-Chancellor and Principal, I request you to confer the degree to the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree, Doctor of Laws, with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Interim Vice-Chancellor and Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Laws. The first candidate for the Master of Laws in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa is Ashwaf Mituka. Waris Ashmel, with distinction. Crispin Bosir, with distinction. Chigomba Idirashe, with distinction. And the candidate is awarded the Kibambai Prize for the student who obtained the highest percentage for the mini dissertation in the Masters in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa. Furthermore, the candidate is awarded the Nelson Mandela Prize for the best student in the Masters in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa as a whole. Chimwemwe Chitope Mawele, with distinction. and the candidate is awarded the Victor Dangwe Prize for the best student in the module Human Rights in Africa in the Masters in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa. Smith Edumbong with distinction. Zanele Fengu. Guy Awa. Safa Idris. Kafula Kasande with distinction. Barbara Lamara with distinction. Zaharam Somi. Makomborero Mupura. Mlondi Nsibanze with distinction. Joshua Nyawa with distinction, and the candidate is awarded the Victor Dangwe Prize for the best student in the module Human Rights in Africa in the Masters in Human Rights and Democratization in Africa. Chioma Okoli. Dinendri Pillay. Ntokozo Sibanyoni. Halima Sonda. Polit War. El Shaddai Alemayehu with distinction, and the candidate is awarded the Dr. to Elisia's Prize for the student who obtained the highest percentage for the mini dissertation in the Masters in Trade and Investment Law in Africa. Katie Banda. Faith Chelangat. Panjichira with distinction, and the candidate is awarded the Advanced International Trade Law Prize for the best student in the Advanced International Trade Law module. Michael Dubuya. Tonderai Mudenga, and he's awarded the award on Social Responsibility Prize for the student who best represents the values of social responsibility that should be displayed by all international trade and investment lawyers. Chido Musa with distinction. And she is awarded the prize Advanced International Investment Law for the best student in the Advanced International Investment Law module. Miracle Okoro. Betile Odrigo. Lusane Odrigo. Brenda Wangura, and she is awarded the Social Responsibility Prize for the student who best represents the values of social responsibility that should be displayed by all international trade and investment lawyers. Nolwazi Kumalo. Taban Guyai. Joanette Green. Lakshita Kanhia with distinction. Ilse Kitembe. Daniel Moyo. Puseleso Mpeisa. Andile Mtombeni. Maria Kapindula.
Mr. Deputy Dean, I was expecting more students. I praise you so nicely now. The numbers are, next year you must get more. But anyway, well done. And let's give a big applause to our graduates. Now, I would also like to request our graduates to to applaud their families, friends, sponsors, spouses, and everyone else that supported them throughout the years. I know Africans don't listen. You ask graduates to do it. Everyone else who's not graduating also claps. Well, it's okay. That's in the spirit of Africa. We do that. We have now come to the end of the proceedings. And before we close, you see I'm reading something here. They say, you know, you're invited to the refreshments afterwards out there. I hope it's not only water. Because they do that to me, and then I ask people nicely to go there, and then they give it a glass of water. But it's okay. It's austerity measures, the university. And you are requested to stand and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem until the assembly has been dissolved and this procession has actually left the auditorium. By virtue of the powers vested in me, I hereby dissolve this assembly of the University of Pretoria.
Post molestam senectutem Afternoon, everyone. Afternoon. Can I please ask that we remain seated? We still have a second part of our graduation. I'm sure you've noted in your programs that we've got an award ceremony.